in some of my email exchanges with one of the members of the BOB, Big Mike, up in New York, he mentioned something after watching my videos showing the modifications that I made to the original little 1-ounce Polaris poppers by Gibbs that you guys have already seen. Mike had watched that video, and then he wrote to me by email, and he said he was surprised that the Gibbs company wasn't offering their lures with the single hook as an option, and I agreed with him that I was surprised as well. Some companies do make those kind of offers, like some of the spoon makers, you know, Gator USA, some of theirs, I think they offer single hook or treble hook, and I think some of the other spoon makers that are in America offer the option of single or treble hooks, dressed hooks or plain hooks, and so on. And so I went ahead and contacted the Gibbs company today off their website, which, by the way, the link to their website is on my webpage at clatterbrat.com on the Made in USA page. It's right up there near the top. Gibbs has been making saltwater lures out of wood since 1945, originally Stanley Gibbs, and then I think his son or sons, plural, had maybe taken over for a while when he retired, the original Stanley Gibbs. I'm not sure on that, but that's what I believe, if I remember correctly. But now a new company, also here in America, has taken over the Gibbs line, and they are doing a fantastic job. There's a good video on YouTube. If you just type in Gibbs Lures or something like that, you'll find it, and it shows the modern day maker and how they go about making copies of the original Stanley Gibbs lures, including these little Polaris poppers, which I recently have bought. And they do a fantastic job. I went to their website today and I wrote a long message to them asking them about some things. For one thing, these little 1-ounce Polaris poppers do not weigh 1 ounce. I checked them all. I bought 5 of them recently, and all 5 of them weighed 0.7 ounces. In other words, 3/4 of an ounce. And details matter a lot to surf fishermen. Surf fishermen, especially serious surf fishermen, when we buy a lure that's supposed to weigh an ounce, we want it to weigh an ounce. If that's what it's advertised at, it better weigh an ounce. Don't tell me this is a 1-ounce lure and then I weigh it and it's a 0.7 ounce, you know, less than 3/4 of an ounce lure. It affects casting distance. That's what's important to surf fishermen. And I also asked them whether they would consider offering single hooks as an option for their smaller plugs. You know, the bigger the plug is, then maybe it makes sense to have a belly hook, you know, because the fish could take it in the middle of the lure or whatever. But these small lures, you don't really only need 1 hook, and a single hook is preferred by most anglers to a treble hook. The single hook is easier on the fish and the fisherman. And very few fish are actually lost because of switching from treble hooks to a single hook. Almost every fish that you would catch with treble hooks, you will also catch with a single hook. And guys, when you're talking about standing on the beach with your body covered with gear, you got forceps hanging, you've got a lanyard around your neck with tools on it, you've got a backpack around your shoulder, a lure bag on your waist, you've got your waders on and everything else, and then you pull in a bluefish that's between 10 and 20 pounds, and he's solid muscle and aggressive as all get out, with a set of choppers and a jaw on him like you would not believe, with a bony mouth and a bony lip. These animals can cause harm, let me tell you. So many fishermen have been hurt by trying to remove the treble hooks, which get all hooked up all over the fish. And you get one of these big bluefish on, a lot of people can tell you their sad story, how they got hooked by their treble hooks in their hands and then got their fingers bit by the blues at the same time. It's just too dangerous and it's too hard on the fish. The single hook is the way to go. So when I wrote to the Gibbs company today, I gave them all my concerns. I asked them why their lures are weighing in at less than 3/4 of an ounce when they're announcing 1 ounce on their website. And I asked them to consider that details matter to surf fishermen. We need to know the truth about the lure that we are buying. Don't tell us it's 1 ounce if it's 3/4 of an ounce. I asked them if they consider either change the weight of their lure to make it an ounce, or change the details on their web page and say what it is, 3/4 of an ounce. The other thing I asked them about was on the 1 ounce Polaris popper. Their photos for each color available show a dressed treble hook on the tail. And I've bought 5 of these lures in the last week, and all of them had plain treble hooks, not dressed. So I asked them either to consider changing their photographs to show the bare treble hook, or start adding the dressed treble hook to their lure instead of giving out a false impression, and then people like myself receive the lures and we find out it's not a dressed treble hook. Well, it looks good in the photo on the website. Then when you get it, it's got a single treble hook. You know, anglers, serious fishermen are detail-oriented guys. We're very specific about what we want to throw and how we want to throw it and all that. And so anyway, I asked the guys at Gibbs to consider making these changes. And I hope they don't think I'm an arrogant son of a bee. You know, I'm just trying to be helpful to them and help their business, actually. And the other thing was, when you move up to the next size of the Polaris popper, 1.5 ounce, and you look at their photos of those color options, you notice that they also show for the 1.5 ounce and up, a through wire is used, which that's the ideal construction for saltwater plugs. It's the strongest, most reliable. Well, their through wire looked very good, and they also had end caps and special hardware on those lures, including a swivel on the belly that lets the hook spin. All these details matter. So I asked them, since their smallest Polaris popper, the 1 ounce, that's really only 3/4 ounces, since that image was inaccurate and the information about it was inaccurate, it weighs 3/4 of an ounce, not 1 ounce. It comes with a bare tail treble hook, not a dressed treble hook on the tail. Since that information was inaccurate, I asked them, because I'm interested to order some of their 1.5 ounce sizes, and if I order it, am I going to get through wire construction and all the nice nifty hardware shown in their pictures? So we'll see how all that turns out. I hope to hear back from them. So anyway, that's the story on the Gibbs lure. The modifications I made do work. My son got blasted last night. Finally, one fish took his lure and he got it hooked up and landed it on the single hook, just like that. Now these 3 here I ordered separately, and I removed the hooks as you saw in the previous video, and I sealed up the belly hook screw hole with epoxy. And then I just put a plain, this is a 5/0 Mustad long shank saltwater hook, and that's the same hook I used in the other video that you guys saw. And I just went plain this time because I think they'll cast better. And on this one, this is a different color. I think they call this one the Pogey color. I also sealed up the belly hook screw hole with epoxy, and this time I went with the 4/0 Eagle Claw circle hook. And I'm curious to see whether I miss any fish or not, because the circle hook is bent down and it's closer to the body of the lure, which is relatively fat. So when the bluefish hit it, they hit it and their mouths are forced to stay open. And then you've got this little tiny hook trying to find something to hook onto, and it might just slip right through their mouth and you not hook them up. But I slid my hand back here as a test, and I find out that the circle hook grabs my flesh pretty quick. So I have a feeling that that little circle hook is going to work just fine. It's got a little bit of a light wire on it, so it's not real strong of a hook. So to be dealing with these big bluefish, you better have your drag set medium, not too heavy, or they will straighten this hook out definitely. I've had them straighten out much heavier hooks than this. So you just have to use precautions and be a smart angler. And here's the other one, my 5th one, is a blue color one. And this one I also set it up with the circle hook on it. And this one does not have any of that chunky glitter on it. Which, by the way, this glitter that comes on the Gibbs lures is not just regular flake. It is chunky, like cubic. It sticks off like really thick and heavy. Very interesting. Makes a nice grippy, surface for the fish to get a hold of, and maybe help you have a split second longer to set that hook. But anyway, all right, that's it on Gibbs lures for now. Also, I should add that when I did the ring opening on the screw eye, I always arrange it back into the lure so that the gap on that ring in the screw eye is facing upwards, not downwards. Because this means that for the fish to straighten that out and come off, he'd have to do more work to do it with the gap on the top versus on the bottom. So that's the detail there. Alright, one last thing and we'll call it quits. Alright, I'm sorry I lied. It's not one last thing, it's two last things. Back to the topic of Gibbs lures. The last three that I ordered and just showed you, on each of these I have a little promo code for a discount. Now I don't know if it's old and or if it'll still work at the Gibbs website, but I'll put this promo code in the description below, and if it works, great, and if not, I apologize, but I don't know how long this sticker was on these lure packages before I bought them. But what it says is for 15% off at gibbslures.com, you use the promo code TackleGrab1, all capital letters, TackleGrab1. I'll put it on the screen and in the description below. Their lures are not cheap, and I'm all for it because they're made in USA by American workers, just like my lures. So I don't mind spending the money on an American-made product, especially handmade woodcraft, products. I love the Gibbs products. So I am going to test this code out myself, and I wish I had it when I ordered my first two Polaris poppers, and to see whether I would get this discount. It's probably a one-time only if it's even still valid. So, try it out, guys. If you want to get a Gibbs, top order lure, handmade out of quality wood construction here in the U.S. by American workers, go to gibbslures.com and use the promotion code TackleGrab1, and we'll see if it works. Alright, on to the last thing. Okay, guys, for anyone that's a saltwater surf fisherman, especially if you're a lure fisherman, most saltwater guys, we will fish both lures and bait often at the same time. We'll usually have a bait rod and a lure rod, always, because if you're just going to fish bait, which sometimes is more relaxing, it's less work, you can just sit back and let the bait soak. You know how it is. Same way for bobber fishing in freshwater. Sometimes that's the way you need to fish because there's not a big school of fish around to hit lures, and you need more fish around for lure fishing. If there's only a few fish around, then bait is the way to go, because competition is not as high when there's only a few fish around between the fish, and that's why lures are usually less effective at such times. But when you're fishing saltwater from the beach, aka surf fishing, you never know what you might run into. That's why whenever possible, you are ready to fish bait and lure. So you have at least two rods with you, sometimes more than that. And if you're a lure fisherman, a lot of us have gone to using what I call quick clips. This is by the brand Sea Striker, made in China. They call it their fast clip. But there's a whole bunch of makers of these things called quick clips. And what they are is they're like a wire clip that you tie directly onto your line, and it allows you to quickly change lures. And it's much better than the old-fashioned swivel snaps, which would open up on you with big fish and things like that, even in freshwater. These are much more streamlined, much stronger, and actually much easier and faster to use. So we all use these. Now, the only reason I'm adding this to the video is what I do is I like to add a little barrel swivel to that quick clip, like that. and that's to prevent or minimize line twist. When you're throwing lures out on the surf from the beach, there's always wind. And most of us today are fishing braid because we can throw it farther. We get longer casts with our lures, which is important a lot of times. It's the difference between being a fisherman and being a spectator. Let me tell you. Sometimes you can't get your lure out far enough. You're not catching anything, but you're watching other guys catch fish. You need that extra 40 feet, that extra 30 yards or whatever. So you're throwing a lot of lures, you're making a lot of casts. You know, in a few hours time you might make 800 to 1,000 casts. That's if you're not getting a fish on every cast, because that takes time to fight the fish. But if you're not getting any bites, you can easily make 100, 800 to 1,000 casts in one half a day surf fishing. And believe me, your back will tell you about it when you're done. So in that windy condition and throwing braided line, a lot of times you'll get wind knots in your braided line. It's very annoying. A loop will appear on your spool and you might not notice it. And then the very next cast, because of that loop, the line going out pulls that loop and you get this big nasty bird's nest. And for a lot of guys, that's the day ender. Your time is over for lure fishing. You better hope you brought a bait rod, because otherwise you're out of business. Well, that's why I go to the, it doesn't show up very good, I apologize, the way I'm shooting this video. That's why I use the quick clip and I add a swivel to it. Now once again, when you're going to add little pieces of hardware to your line and you're going to be catching big fish, 10 pounds and up for bluefish, those fish pound for pound fight harder than any other fish in the world, in my opinion. I challenge anybody to find a harder fighting fish than a bluefish. And once they get up to 10 pounds and bigger, 10, 15, 20 pounds, you got a monster on your hands. And so when you get fish like that on, and you have these little teeny pieces of hardware like that little barrel swivel and this quick clip, you need to remember to set your drag at a medium setting so that it takes something to pull it out, so that the drag is strong enough to get a good hook set, but so that it's light enough so these big fish can pull everywhere and run wild and strip your line, which they do, and make your reel, scream, and they'll do it without straightening out or breaking your hardware. That's the ticket. You also usually have knots on your line, like connecting a shock leader to your braided line. The shock leader allows you to cast hard without cutting your finger, because it's monofilament on your finger when you cast, and that type of thing. And therefore you have a knot that's attaching your shock leader to your standing, braided line. That knot can fail if you have your drag down too tight and a big monster fish on, and heavy waves, wind, and current and everything else. So you just have to remember to be drag sensitive when you're fishing saltwater for gator blues and big stripers or any other big saltwater fish, especially from the surf. If you're in a boat, you can chase fish all over the place. If you're in a kayak, you can let them pull you around or whatever. But when you're stuck on the beach, you're very limited how you can fight that fish. And so you need to be conscious of certain things. Line twist is one thing. Get rid of it, because you want to minimize getting loops and tangles and knots in your braided line. That's why I recommend a swivel somewhere in your setup. I put mine right on the quick clip. That's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Again, stay tuned, sometime this week, hopefully, or by this coming weekend, I'll have the video up for the Salamander Bart auctions. And for all you guys that have contacted me and expressed interest, thank you so much. You guys are the best. I've been looking back through all my old order invoices on the computers. I have 2 computers here that I've used since I started Clatterbrat in 2011. And I've looked back and I've looked at all the old orders, and I've seen all the names of you guys. There's I'd say over 400 names of guys who have ordered Clatterbrat lures since I started making them and selling them. And I just appreciate all of you guys. I mean, almost every single one of you have ordered way more than one lure from me. Most of you have ordered up to 10 or 20 lures from me. Thank you so much. And then there's a bunch of guys that's ordered 30 to 50 lures from me. And then I've got guys that have ordered, believe it or not, up to 100 and beyond of my lures. You guys, God bless each and every one of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are the best supporters of an American-made product that anybody could ever hope to find. And I'm just really appreciative of each and every one of you. All right, thanks for watching. God bless, and best wishes.